When Katrina struck, the storm surge knocked down and totally destroyed the building where my office was located. So here was my office, this place here. A colleague of mine found my old shingle, my Riley Morse attorney at law shingle, buried under some busted up flooring. That was basically it. One piece of wood.
I was in Jackson, Mississippi, working as a staff attorney with the ACLU of Mississippi when Hurricane Katrina hit. I grew up in a small town north of New Orleans. And I said, I have to go back. I cannot avoid it. My family is, displaced. My friends are displaced. This is my community.
It was obvious that the Katrina disaster was going to create problems and create opportunities for public service work that we had never seen before. All I could think of, over and over again, was David Stern at Equal Justice Works board meetings year after year saying, our mission is to create an army of public service lawyers who will make institutional change in our society.
People had legal needs and needs to access FEMA benefits, or were facing eviction or serious legal problems, and there were very few lawyers. We knew we had access to that talent pool of the lawyers who wanted to do this work, and we wanted to connect them with the communities. We were committed at that moment to rally the troops and do whatever we could, whatever we needed to do in order to be able to raise the money and send the talent down there. And we did it.
One of the great challenges that everyone is struggling with in the aftermath of a disaster like the Katrina disaster is how it is that assistance should be offered and distributed. Riley Morse's project with the Mississippi Center is making sure that what money is coming into the state is being distributed in ways that are meaningful for people and impacting their lives.
Early on, as advocates, we urged the governor to make the design of the home grant program, the program that would help people who cannot afford to rebuild, be fair, and that you aim first for the most vulnerable. So how high was the water at that point?
It was up to my waist.
This place was flooded on the day after Katrina.
There was nothing to save, so we just decided, my brother and I, put everything outside the road, and that was it, and just got the whole house out and remodeled. No flood insurance, because we were in a low flood zone.
Governor's first proposal was way too low. $50,000 in a post-Katrina inflation construction environment won't get you hardly anything. So we went through a process of pursuing the key governor's people and press for the need for a larger amount, and we were successful in getting that. Got all the floor and all the lower part of the walls right. A few months later, KJ brings me his home grant package, and he and his mom have qualified. And I began to realize, wow, they're probably going to be able to rebuild. Somebody that, you always figured was totally on the margins has maybe got a chance.
Right after the disaster, our first focus was on New Orleans. And then Rita comes along, which is another major disaster.
We had over 80,000 households that were affected by it. We had a whole town of Saint Sabine that was totally wiped out.
So we sent lawyers down to Mississippi, to Alabama, and to Texas.
One person alone couldn't handle it. We just had thousands of people that we had to represent. I was able to bring in other partners, both pro bono as well as other attorneys, to help us work on the hurricane matters.
We knew that there's a huge group of Vietnamese Rita survivors here who weren't getting help.
We've done Vietnamese clinics, in their churches, their, community centers, to try and access individuals who may not have had the kind of outreach that should have been done by FEMA or by some of the other organizations.
Without a Vietnamese-speaking person at the clinic, I do not think a single Vietnamese person would come to seek help because they are afraid of the language and the cultural barriers. They need someone who they could feel at ease with.
Right after the hurricanes, there was just a huge flight of people from New Orleans into other areas in the South. They'd returned and they faced a whole range of issues, from insurance claims to FEMA benefits. So they needed legal representation in order to secure basic benefits to be able to survive.
I had no resources, no money, and had spent all the money I had because I was living like paycheck to paycheck, and I'm still living paycheck to paycheck.
Ms. Moore was told by a FEMA worker to move back into that property that she lived in before the disaster, and the roof had been damaged and was falling in. So she has no place to go. Landlord refuses to do repairs, so she takes up living in her truck. 6 to 9 months after the disaster, FEMA sent out tens of thousands of letters to people who were still displaced, who still, have no homes and who still are struggling to survive and return. They sent these letters out and said, well, we've determined that the money that you received post-disaster, you were not eligible for, and we want it back.
They gave me $2,000, $23.58, and $10,000 plus, and they wanted it all back.
We discovered that they had misspelled her name in the system, and basically were saying that she was not the person that she said she was. I want to make sure that we get some clarity from FEMA about this.
Rainey has been a leader in coming up with strategies to appeal FEMA recoupments, and she's been a voice for the clients who've been re-traumatized by the FEMA recoupment.
We can call together and just get those questions asked and try to figure out what's going on.
I got a phone call. The guy identified himself on the behalf of the United States federal government. We would like to apologize to you.
Ms. Moore's case has been resolved, and they ruled in her favor. So this is good, right?
Right.
So, some major milestones, that we've been able to cross.
This hurricane made acute a set of conditions that have existed for generations. But it seems as though the will to have a discussion about poverty and about discrimination has waned. This fellowship's helped to make sure that there's a voice in the public domain persistently pushing those issues and making people start to talk more and more about them.
I come back because I am tied to the community. I am the community. And as long as the people want to fight, I have to say that I'm willing to do it with them.
How much was this damage to?
When people come to you, they're coming to you at their most vulnerable. And even though we are lawyers and we're in their legal system, there has to be that part of the personal that hopefully you've given them a little bit of hope and given them a little bit of help.